Welcome back to the Sad Dad Games podcast. You're listening to another episode of Eric's Indie Corner, where every week I pick an indie game that I love and want to recommend to all of you. Today we're talking about Yooka-Replaylee. Hooray! Very topical. We are your hosts, Eric.
I'm Shan.
I'm Tucker.
I'm Emerlie.
All right. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. You can find us wherever you find podcasts. Every Monday is Eric's Indie Corner. Every Thursday is our regular series. So we'd love to see you in the comments and hope you like our videos.
Eric, the verb that you need to use is smash that like button.
Smash that like button. You gotta smash
subscribe.
it.
It's all about smashing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
If you don't smash the like
kids love
button, it
that.
doesn't even count. Yeah.
Yeah. It just has to be an aggressive word, because it's a much stronger call to action.
Yeah. Smash. I'll think of some more creative
Obliterate.
term. Obliterate that like button or the subscribe button. I like that. That's a good one. All right. Well, so today, Yooka-Replaylee. I'm super excited to talk about this one. As of time of recording, it came out very recently, so I have been playing it a lot the past yesterday to try to get enough experience under my belt to be able to talk about this game. So Yooka-Replaylee is a 3D collectathon platformer developed by Playtonic Games. They have also published or developed games Yooka-Laylee and then Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Layer. Yooka-Laylee originally released on April 11th of 2017, and then Yooka-Replaylee just barely came out on October 9th, 2025. So what is Yooka-Replaylee? Yooka-Replaylee is a remake / remaster / retry for the original Yooka-Laylee. So Yooka-Laylee was a 3D platformer that came out, like I said, 2017. It was kickstarted by a bunch of ex-Rare devs. So Rareware are the people who, like the company that back in the day for N64 developed games like Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Donkey Kong 64. They were really big 3D platforming guys with a very particular style and flavor of video games that really resonated with a lot of people. I know Shan is in particular is a huge fan of Banjo-Kazooie, but I think we've all played Banjo-Kazooie and really enjoy those original games. But
Yeah, there was a phase of my life where this was the most important thing on my radar. And and so I was like, well, Banjo-Kazooie doesn't exist anymore as an IP essentially, so I need something.
because Microsoft
And nothing,
killed it.
yeah, and collectathons were a thing of the past. And then I heard about this Kickstarter. I was like, well, that's the next best thing by the people that inspired me greatly as a child. I didn't know that, that they would have struggles along the way, but I did kickstart it. And I was so excited about the concept. This was like a year or two before it was even released that I took the name Laylee and I named my dog after it. Yeah. So I named it after an IP that had not even come out. I was like, you know what, that lizard is kind of cute, but I really like the name. It's very clever. I'm going to run with it. And so my dog is now, she's about to turn 11.
Oh, wow. How about that?
That's how long ago this happened.
Yeah, Shan was unreasonably excited for a game that he had never played and had never existed. And so there was, just to kind of paint a picture, there was a huge amount of hype around the release of Yooka-Laylee. Tons of people were really excited that a bunch of the old Rareware team was developing a new game kind of as a spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie because it had been so long since we had seen 3D collectathon platformers, but in particular, anything that was quite like Banjo-Kazooie. And so everyone was really excited for that. And then the game launched and it received kind of a lukewarm welcome. So I remember getting the game shortly after launch. And for the most part, I had a pretty good time with it. A little rough around the edges, some definite areas for improvement. But I think that if Yooka-Replaylee hadn't come out, I still would feature the original on this show as like a Eric's Indie Corner thing. Because I did like the original, definite room for improvement. And I actually went back and I played the original for like a couple hours the week leading up to the release of Replaylee just to kind of remember what it was like and have it in my mind. And oh man, the improvements. We'll get to that in a minute, but Replaylee is a whole other thing. So Shan, what were your thoughts when
the original,
first
it
came out?
really bummed me the hell out.
Yeah.
I think it was like I had less literacy overall at the time of like game design and how to do that correctly. And so, but like it was so obviously flawed. Now it was like one of my great awakenings on like, oh, even though I haven't studied this, I know I can see some very obvious flaws, like the enemy variability. They had like one enemy AI skinned like 20 different times, and it was very stupid AI. It did the same thing every time. It was really obnoxious. And the other thing that struck me the hardest was the emptiness, the size and emptiness of every world. I had not played Banjo-Tooie at the time because I just didn't have access to that cart. Not that because I wouldn't play a ROM. Who does that?
Yeah. Nobody plays ROMs. You only play games that you purchase legally and lawfully. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And so, but I now, having played Banjo-Tooie and going back, I was like, okay, they had already started making this mistake and they didn't learn from it. Because what made Banjo-Kazooie so delightful was the limitations of the hardware that forced them to create hub worlds that were very small in size, that had a lot of like limitations to line of sight. So you get like an object in the middle of the area, or a lot of big objects obscuring other parts so they could cull that information. And all of those hardware and tech limitations forced very small, very tight worlds with tight objectives, such that you could run into any given world and finish it within like 30 to 60 minutes, and especially if you know exactly where to go and what to do. So the gameplay is just so tight, and because it's tight, you always can find the next objective. Then you get to Banjo-Tooie, and I couldn't tell what the shit to do at any given time. I was so lost, and that's exactly what happened with Yooka-Laylee. It was giant worlds with no aim in sight. For example, platformers typically, because of Mario, use the concept of using coins to say, hey, come here, do this, because it will lead you to an objective. That's what coins are all about. And Yooka-Laylee is instead like one giant world with nothing that directionally points you in any given direction, and there's so much space in between. There's no like fun little tasks like jump through this or jump on top of that, so that you feel like you're having fun between objectives.
Yeah, it's hard
so
to
much
kind
emptiness.
Yeah, it's very empty. It's hard to make your way from one task to the next because of that emptiness. So I don't know. Before we start moving on to the general improvements of of Yooka Replay-ly and all the extra stuff that brings, Tucker and Emerlie, did you have any Banjo-Kazooie memories, or how you felt about that game originally that you wanted to share?
I'm very indifferent towards Banjo-Kazooie.
You can go to hell.
To Shan's, to Shan and Eric's disdain. Like when that game came out, I was not super big into collectathons.
Tucker was too cool. He was playing Perfect Dark and 007. He was too cool
for school.
And NBA 1998.
1998. But yeah, and then so like my fondest memories are actually Shan playing it and me sitting there watching Shan play it in college.
One of the many times that I did that.
I was gonna say about every year Shan would pull it out and play through. Yeah.
So my memories are a little bit more recent.
It's more voyeuristic. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Another big fancy word from Shan.
Word.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what voyeurism is.
Yeah, obviously.
I can't remember where I was going with that. I got distracted by paying for Shan's words.
Yeah.
Because they're so expensive. But no, yeah, and like just watching him play it, like that was super fun. And just seeing it from a little bit of a different perspective. Like I think just streaming video games wasn't a thing then, so I get why people watch video game streams, because it was addicting watching Shan play Banjo-Kazooie. That was kind of my first like intro into it, and then watched Eric play Metroid Prime games, and that's where how do you get a morph ball up there is the solution to every puzzle.
It's every time you're playing a Metroid game and you're not sure what the answer to a puzzle is, 90% of the time you just have to think morph ball and then work backwards from there.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my memories. Go, Emerlie.
So my memories are very similar to yours, and that is because I'm the youngest of 5 kids. Shan's the second youngest, And so my memories growing up was watching video games. I'm into voyeurism. It's cool. So
Exactly.
Obviously,
yeah, when you're the youngest and it's like you've got Shan and you've got, we have another brother, we have a sister who's very tomboy, and then another sister who was just kind of existed in the middle. But the point is like we had one TV for the most part growing up. And so do you think that I ever got to choose what I was watching or playing? Absolutely not. So I am very, very familiar with Banjo-Kazooie. I know that game like inside and out. I know how that game plays. I know a lot of the puzzles, all of that, but I don't know if I've ever actually played it. But I have seen Shan aggressively play that game. Like, he is obsessed with that one. And yeah, that's
it's like Resident Evil and Banjo-Kazooie. That's basically all you need to know about Shan. Yeah.
Well, Zelda isn't actually as high as those two. I would even say Metroid might be above Zelda for me at this point. It's just the best of Zelda, like A Link to the Past, is some of the greatest gaming in history. But that franchise has been like so inconsistent on my perfect version of what the formula is, that it's allowed something like Metroid, who has been consistent in almost every single entry, to rise above that.
Well, okay, yes. I totally get that, and you've explained that to me before, but growing up, my childhood was watching mostly Zelda and then playing Pokemon on Game Boy Pocket. And Shan and I used to wake up at like right before 6 a.m. and we would sit in front of the TV with the rainbow screen and just that ee, and we would sit there and wait
for the channels to come back.
Yeah, wait for the channels to come back, because this was back for our younger
when
audience.
the TV used to turn off at night. It would just stop.
You
They
didn't
would stop
have
airing
24/7 programming. That wasn't a thing. So we would wake up super early, and Shan and I, solidarity, like we were in it together. We would both wake up before school, and we would sit in front of that rainbow screen, and we would have our VHS ready to go. And the moment that Pokemon came on at 6 a.m., we'd hit record, and we'd record that before we got ready. We'd go
smash
get ready
that
for
record
school.
button.
Smash that
so
record
aggressively.
button.
But anyways, like my childhood was Pokemon and Zelda for the most part. But yes, the excessive amount of times that Shan played, games like Banjo-Kazooie, the amount of times I've seen Ocarina of Time and some of these other games, Resident Evil. You could not walk by the living room without Shan playing the same Resident Evil game over and over again.
Yeah. By the way, that rainbow screen, I bought this CRT TV from somebody
Shan always has to plug
who.
this.
We have
No,
gone
well-
so long without hearing about Shan CRT TV. This is
It's
very
been a
refreshing.
minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
But this is why it's significant. I went to go pick it up, and this TV was being used actively in like a production studio for development of commercials and stuff like that. And the reason that they used it, even after decades, is because it's still some of the most accurate colors that you can get out there in monitors. They finally replaced it with like $2,000 plus monitors that were modern. But I went in there to check the listing, and so he could show me if it was still working and it was in perfect condition. But he pulled up the rainbow screen, and he's like, okay, let me just like correct all of the colors for you. And so he shifts it to blue only, and then he starts like going up and down on the dial. Then he goes to red only, and then he goes to black and white, and he tries to color match them. I was like, how have I never known what that screen was for? But the juxtaposition of all of these color bands are such that when you put it into a certain spectrum, you can color adjust it, or you can contrast adjust it so that it's 100% color accurate. And it's like, nobody in the world at the time in the 90s with like consumer televisions knew what the shit that screen was. They just knew that
None
the
of the kids,
screeching
they were like
sound,
colors. Yeah.
the screeching sound was obnoxious, weirdly nostalgic for me, but like, that's actually really important. Like, I don't know.
Had no
It
idea.
was stupid that it took decades to learn what that was about.
That was very stupid of you, Shannon. It was good of you to admit it. Yeah, so let's jump back into Yooka Replay-ly. So I've structured today's episode a little bit differently. Instead of going through the normal things that I usually do on an indie episode, we're just going to talk about a lot of the improvements that Yooka Replay-ly makes since Yooka-Laylee was an original game. So to clarify once again, Yooka-Laylee was a game that released 2017. Yooka Replay-ly just barely released now and is kind of somewhere in between like a remake and a remaster. It uses the same levels and the same general play style, but it improves and adds and remixes so much that it feels almost like a remake of the game. It's basically kind of like taking a mulligan, but for a whole video game. Like they originally released the first Yooka-Laylee and realized that it had a lot of shortcomings, and they were like, okay, well, let's just try again. And so I think, 8-ish years later, they just tried again. And this feels like the game that they were trying to make the first time, but because of either inexperience or lack of time or funds or whatever, weren't able to fully produce. But Yooka Replay-ly feels like what Yooka-Laylee was originally meant to be in the first place. All right. So as far as the upgrades, one of the first things that comes to mind is the completely revamped visuals. Visually, this new game is very nice to look at. It's running on modern hardware, and so it can do a lot to really improve textures, lighting, level geometry, character models. It just kind of across the board, it looks like a whole new game. And the old Yooka-Laylee wasn't a bad looking game by any means. There were parts of it that felt kind of flat and a little dated and slightly clunky, but it was a fairly, nice looking game, all things considered. But then put side by side with Yooka Replay-ly, it's night and day. Yooka Replay-ly does so much, particularly with the lighting, that really elevates this game, and it looks brand new. There's several different levels. Like one of the levels is a swamp level in the original Yooka-Laylee, and it's in the first one, it was one of my least favorite levels because everything is just like green and murky and it just kind of looks bland and boring. But then in Yooka Replay-ly, they have a lot of different lighting. So it still feels like a swamp, but there's like some orange vines and, pink and orange and blue lighting coming from different directions. And so it has this really thick atmospheric kind of mystical swamp feel to it. So it still feels like a swamp. It still kind of retains the essence of the original level, but it doesn't feel flat and kind of lifeless anymore. So they've done so much artistically to bring it up to a modern standard visually.
And this was like one of the brilliances of Banjo-Kazooie. It's like they had, I think, 10 overworlds, and they each played with different themes like Halloween. But they also were through a specific palette of this cartoon vibrancy that really made it come to life in, juxtaposition to the music itself. Like it's such a specific visual and auditory flavor that it stands wholly unique as I don't know, it's just so stylistic, right? Like that it's time immemorial how it'll survive. And Yooka-Laylee, yes, it felt more desaturated and flat, and so there is a feel of like, well, this doesn't make me feel like Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, and I feel like Yooka Replay-ly does kind of evoke that unique color palette that we saw a lot of in the N64 era. And so while it feels modern, it looks modern, it does kind of like tickle this nostalgia in your brain almost subconsciously. So like that a lot about it. Very pretty game. Also, one of the big complaints levied against the original Yooka-Laylee was the camera was kind of a complete mess. The camera has been vastly improved. It's one of the better cameras I've seen in a 3D platformer. 3D platformers are infamous for having bad cameras.
Except Mario.
Mario pretty much always gets it right. And so Yooka-Laylee actually takes a page from some Mario ideologies when it comes to the camera. So certain areas that normally would have let you move the camera, like certain platforming sections. And now in Yooka Replay-ly, it'll, like, if you turn around a corner, it'll lock the camera to a certain angle so that you can kind of see what you're doing. And then once you move past that, the camera will go back to normal or whatever. But the camera is greatly improved. It locks the camera when it needs to be locked so that you can see what's happening, and there's no, like, you're not wrestling with the camera the whole time. They've done a lot of very smart tweaks that I can't really articulate because I am not a video game developer, but it just feels fluid and it feels a lot better to deal with.
Yeah, that was actually, if I remember right, when I first got the game, there were so many struggles UX wise with the camera, that they had actually revamped it. That was one of their first patches, I believe, was fixing the camera, and they had to do it again.
They did do, yeah. So they released a post. I don't remember how long. It was like a month or two after the game originally released, Yooka-Laylee. They released some patches and stuff to improve the camera, and it was improved, but it was still, not
A struggle.
fantastic. But yeah, Yooka-Laylee's camera at launch was like, there were tons of people like, I can't even play this game. It's just rough. So yeah, not an issue in Yooka Replay-ly. I haven't had a single issue with the camera. And then I'm just going to kind of rattle stuff off like this really quickly because there's a lot of stuff, but comprehensive gameplay tweaks. So many small things that add up to so much. So things like the double jump is now gone. So instead of double jumping, you just have one jump, but it's much higher, which I feel like works better because the double jump in the original Yooka-Laylee was really only used to like just... it felt like a single jump that you had to push the button twice for, and so they've just kind of streamlined that, made it one higher jump, which feels a lot better. The controls have been tweaked, and so it's a little more intuitive. The flying ability, where you could just fly wherever you wanted, has been relegated to like one of those power-ups that you can slurp and eat as Yooka and then fly around that way. So it's only for certain areas. It's harder to just completely break open the game, which is nice. Let me see here.
It's reminding me of the sound.
Yeah. Where Yooka or Laylee would make little bat sounds as she flies around. Yeah.
No, this was Kazooie.
Oh, that one was Kazooie. Yeah, yes. No, you're right.
Huh? Just
that was
brilliant
like I was
sound effects.
Playing the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of other stuff. The flying ability. Let me see. Stamina regenerates now over time, and it's much easier to replenish by eating butterflies. There's no more fall damage, no more breath gauge. Rolling doesn't take up stamina, which is like a huge deal. That used to drive me crazy because rolling was such a convenient way to get around. You can like roll quickly and over and over and over again, but it used up stamina, and so you couldn't really use it as like a traversal thing. You had to save it for when you situationally needed to use it, which made the game feel slower and even more spaced out than it needed to. That's been fixed. Not an issue anymore.
Like, imagine not being able to roll infinitely as Link in Ocarina of Time, because if you roll from Kakariko, not Kakariko, from Kokiri to the castle, or to temple, what is that place called? At the beginning, when you're going, Hyrule. When you're going to Hyrule Castle, like if you roll the whole time, you actually go faster than running, and you can get there before the first sundown.
But you gotta be quick. Yeah.
But imagine if the stamina ran out every 2 rolls, and you could never
had to
get
find
that.
a collectible to get more stamina. It didn't just auto come back. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a huge
Unplayable.
improvement. Yeah, unplayable. So that's a huge improvement. Also, the Pagey. So normally the main collectible that you get is called Pages. Normally you'd have to spend Pages to unlock a new level. Now they've made it so that there are doors blocking the next section of the overworld map, which just kind of makes it feel a little more streamlined. It's a less like it's a small change, but it feels less like you're being gated by the Pagey progress.
That's how Banjo-Kazooie did it too, with the notes doors.
Yeah, just ripping ideas straight from Banjo-Kazooie pretty much. And then the UI is also greatly improved. So that's just a lot of like little gameplay tweaks that add up to a big deal. And then probably one of the biggest changes is that there is now more than double the amount of Pages. So the main collectible Pages, it's kind of like stars in Mario or Jiggies in Banjo-Kazooie. There was 145 pages in the original, and now there's 300 in Yooka Replay-ly. So each level has 50, as well as the overworld has 50. And it does a huge deal to mitigate that, like the feeling of emptiness. There's a ton of new activities to get Pages. There's most of the original Pages are there. Some of them have been replaced or tweaked, but then there's also tons and tons of new ones. There's things like red coins from Mario, which are just straight up red coins where you have to collect 8 of them and then you get a Pagey within a certain amount of time. And then there's ones where you like hit a green coin and then it does a path of green coins and you have to collect them all before they disappear, like in an amount of time. And you get Pages for that. There's also new like Pagey pieces, which are like little puzzle pieces that just straight up look like Jiggies. And then when you get 4 of them, you get a new pagey. Yeah.
That's
So there,
fantastic.
and it's lots of like they've hugely expanded the amount of pages that there are, and it feels kind of somewhere in between like a classic collectathon and Mario Odyssey, where in Mario Odyssey you're getting new moons every other second, and it's hard to remember like which moons you've gotten and remember any specific moon because they're just constantly being showered on you. And like a classic one where each one was really specific and intentional. It took you 5 to 10 minutes per jiggy or moon or star or whatever. It feels kind of somewhere in between that, where you're like getting pages at a nice clip, and you feel like you're getting them for just kind of exploring, but they're not just throwing them at you left and right for no reason. So I feel like they hit a pretty good balance with that.
You keep using this word, and maybe I missed it. What is a pagey?
Oh, so pages are like the main collectibles. So in Super Mario 64, they're stars.
Right.
And like in Banjo-Kazooie,
pages
it's
of a book.
jiggies. So they're pages of they're pages of a book.
Thank
I
you.
should have explained
I
that. So
understood
yeah.
it was a collectible because you were comparing it to other collectibles, but you're like, pagey this, pagey that.
Yes. So at the
It's
I
in
actually-
the name.
I did kind of
Say
brush over
pages?
that. Yeah. You're trying to say pages? You're saying pages wrong. Yeah.
Sounds like you're starting a word and you're not finishing it.
Is it
Trying to say
uh,
spaghetti?
is it pieces of paper with eyeballs on it like they've done on other
Just straight
games?
up.
Like
It's just
it's
pieces
like
of paper with
Clippy,
eyeballs
but a
on it.
page.
Yeah.
It's exactly like that. It's like Clippy, but a piece of paper. So it's basically, I guess I kind of brushed over this. At the beginning of the game, Yooka and Laylee find a book. And inside the book, it grants you whatever, if you write something in the book, it makes whatever you wrote in there come true. And
Like
so the
Death
big
Note?
bad, capital
Like
B,
kills
who is,
people?
yeah, it's like Death Note, but for literally whatever you could
It's a
imagine.
shot for shot remake.
Yeah, shot for shot remake of Death Note. Yooka-Replaylee, Death Note,
Anyway.
the same thing. So they find this book, and then capital B, the main bad guy of the game, who is like a capitalist, runs a big company, Mr. B guy. He's like, I'm Mr. Business Boy.
A GDB.
He's a GDB.
It's a GDB, a no good B.
That's very applicable here. It's a perfect reference. Very, very happy with that.
Britta, getting rid of the B.
So capital B, this GDB, at the beginning of the game, after Yooka and Laylee find this book, he turns on a device that sucks up all of the books in the whole world and to his like corporate office so that he can sell them back to everybody at a profit because he's a mean guy. But in the process of this book,
Capitalist business model.
classic,
That's just-
stealing all the books in the world to sell them back. Classic
You know what?
capitalist move.
It's a flawed system, but no other system has proven to be better. So,
Yeah.
so he's just
stealing
exploiting
books.
it.
He's just exploiting it. Yeah. He's just doing the best with what the hand he's been dealt. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, and as the huge like fancy book is flying away, it opens up and it shoots all of its pages out so that it can't be used for evil in the hands of capital B. And so you have to go around collecting the pages around the world. Yeah.
Excellent.
So that's what pages are. I totally glossed over that. You're right, Emerlie.
But one thing that like they understood in with this team is like Banjo-Kazooie, you could get puzzle pieces and then they became gates to other worlds, but it also would create a puzzle opportunity to be able to place these puzzles. They were interlocking.
Yeah,
So
that was fun.
like not that this game does that, but specifically other than you need it to complete tomes because it's British snobbery. They have to use the word tome. There wasn't a puzzle element, if I remember right. So, but I think what makes it great is like the main collectible in Banjo-Kazooie and in this have utility. Whereas like in Mario, it's like you just get a moon. It's just a moon, right? And then you move on
power
to the
your
next.
ship, I guess, kind of. Yeah.
I think the utility adds a lot of value to a collectathon.
Yeah, it gives it kind of context and makes it feel, I get what you're saying. I agree with that. So lots more pages, which is a huge deal. Super big fan of that. And the one thing that I will say, I'll get to that point later. So lots of new pages. That's great. There's also one of the new changes that there is maps. There's like a map for the overworld. There's maps for each of the levels. which is something that I thought was in the original game, but it's totally not. And now I remember why I felt so frustrated trying to navigate some of those levels. But there's maps now. So, and there's like when you find a pagey, it marks on the map where you found the pagey. And so it's easy to tell where you've been. And then sometimes if you see a pagey, but you don't collect it because you can't figure out how, it'll mark that on the map too. So you remember like, oh, I left a pagey there. I'll come back for that later. The map is really good, does a great job of helping you 100% complete the game, find the stuff that you haven't found without, just being like, here's everything, like just plopping it down on a map like a Ubisoft game. But
can we go back in time and remaster Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie?
Yes, please.
Also have a map.
Let's let Playtonic do it. These guys, I'm very impressed with this game. I feel like, and it's a lot of ex-Rare devs, so I'm sure that they'd love to. But Microsoft is a big money-eating evil corporation. They are capital
and
B.
Soul crushing and IP killing. Yeah.
Their
only
next
bad
plan is
things to
steal
say
all the
about that
books in the
Phil
world.
Spencer right now. You guys with like
He's an
Xbox,
actual
like
GDB.
I think Xbox, like we already saw the writing on the wall for the last couple years. Was this week or the last week of news not like a death knell to that entire console?
I don't know
They're
what
pulling
they're
it from
doing.
like every store. Like it just doesn't push enough units to keep it on the shelves, and they did it at the same time that they increase the prices due to tariffs and global conditions in any other way. But like Xbox is dead. Nobody wants to pay more for less. I mean, PlayStation is also doing like a more expensive console for less money, or I mean for more money. Okay, they're doing a worse console for more money, but they still have some IP, whereas Xbox is just straight up dead.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll ever do anything with Banjo. I'd love to see them sell it back to someone who cares, but who knows?
They need to do a fire sale on their IP.
Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe we'll
As
get
long
a
as
new
they-
Banjo game.
And like, yeah, maybe they can do that, and that allows them to continue just being a publisher, but have more active IP.
Yeah, I'd be down with that. So, in addition to the new maps, I'm terrible at transitions if anybody couldn't tell. In addition to the new maps, there's also a new character named Mark. It's a little bookmark. When you can find them anywhere in the levels. There's several of them around, and it'll bookmark your location. You can use them as fast travel points, which is like something that's like, how was that not in the original game? It makes traveling around a huge deal, particularly in levels like the Ice World, which are very, very vertical, and it can take a long time to like get back up to the top of the level and things like that. So it's a huge deal for that. Another great thing is that all of your movement abilities are unlocked from the beginning. So in the first Yooka-Laylee, as you're going through the game, you unlock new moves and new abilities kind of as you go along. But it had this effect of like when you were going through a level at the beginning, you wouldn't be able to get a jiggy and you wouldn't really understand why, because the game wasn't super good at telegraphing like, oh, you're going to get an ability later on. You need to come back to this later. And so it just kind of felt like, I don't know what to do here. And then you wouldn't feel super compelled to come back and find the pages that you missed earlier. And so what their answer to that has been is to just give you all of the movement abilities right from the get-go, which I think is a little bit of a double-edged sword. I think on the whole, it was probably the right choice. It makes the game feel more dynamic. It has kind of like a Mario-ish feel. Mario doesn't unlock new moves as he goes through games. He has his full kit right from the beginning. And so it felt more kind of like that, more of a modern platforming experience in that way. But I do feel like you lose a little bit of that progression when you're able to just kind of do it all right at the beginning. There is a slight loss of that sense of like learning new moves to, unlock new things and use them in new ways. But I think it's a good trade-off for having the game just feel more fun to play. So I'm okay with it.
Well, I think I'll be okay with that, but I do enjoy the power fantasy of a traditional.
So
Banjo.
it's
Yeah,
I think it's one of those things where it's like, I understand why they did it, and I think it was probably the right call, but you do lose a little bit of like what they were originally shooting for with the first Yooka-Laylee game. Mm-hmm. There is also, speaking of things that they like that you lose a little bit, is in the first Yooka-Laylee game, the levels were structured in kind of a unique way where you would get a bunch of pages and you could use that to unlock a new tome, which is like a new level. And then once you and it was like half of a level. It was not quite as big as it could be. And then you could get more pages and then use those pages to expand the level, which would make the level bigger, and it would, add more platforms and like other things to do and like just whole new areas of this level that weren't there before, which I thought was an original concept when the game first came out. And I thought that it was, a neat idea. But now playing Yooka-Replaylee just has the levels. They're not expandable. They're full big size right from the beginning. And it does feel a little bit more fluid for exploring. You're not ever met with dead ends or paths that just stop where, it's like, oh, you have to come back once it's expanded. It just feels more fluid that way. And I think, again, you lose a little bit of what they were originally shooting for, but I think it was the right call and I enjoy that choice more. So that's another big change. They've added a few new collectibles such as coins, which are similar to just like Mario coins. They're all over the place. You can use them to buy things. Speaking of which, there's new vendors. So Trouser, who is a snake. He's my favorite. He's a trouser snake. Hilarious. He's a snake that wears pants.
That's what
which
this
is
team
classic
was best at.
British humor. Yeah.
Exactly. Like Rare excelled at crass humor ahead of its time, and it made them a very flavorful studio. And everybody else since then has just kind of played it safe. I miss raunchy video games. I mean,
Yes.
not completely. Like there's things like Borderlands or whatever, but it's like it was so cheeky.
It was like this kind of tongue-in-cheek British, lots of puns, and inappropriate to people who understood the joke, but perfectly innocent on the surface for like kids and stuff that are just like, when you're a kid, you're playing, it's like, oh, he's a snake and he's named Trouser because he's wearing pants. But then when you're adult, you're like, wiener. Like, I get the joke.
It's so much funnier. Just layers to it.
So they're the vendors from the original game, Trouser and Vendy. They serve different purposes now. Trouser within each world has new upgrades and items that you can buy with quills. So each world has quills, which are like little feathers. They're a currency that you can pick up, and you use them to buy things like a new outfit or new modifiers to your gameplay. Things like having more health, having more stamina, things like that. And then Vendy, who is the other vendor, she's like a big refrigerator vending machine looking thing. I guess she's a vending machine. She wouldn't be a refrigerator. That wouldn't make any sense. But
Vendy the refrigerator.
She does kind of look like a refrigerator. Vendy the refrigerator. But she sells tonics and cosmetics now, which is like, I know that a lot of people hear the word cosmetics and they're immediately like, ugh. But
open my wallet, give me it. Yeah.
No
like
microtransactions. There's no like additional money. It's just like, it's only the coins that you find in game, and you can use it to buy funny outfits and stuff like that. And most importantly, you can dress up as Shovel Knight, which is all I want from any game. Every time a game is like, do you want to dress as Shovel Knight, or would you like Shovel Knight as a playable character? I'm like, I didn't have any interest in this game until you told me that, and now it's all I want to play.
It reminds me of that Portlandia sketch where they're like, put a bird on it.
Put a bird on it. Put Shovel Knight in it.
Put Shovel Knight
all I
on it. And then
Can
Eric
you
will always buy it.
Can you remind our audience, Eric, how many hours you've logged into Shovel Knight?
I think it was like 125 just on my Switch. I've played it a lot on my 3DS as well.
How many
I
times
really like Shovel Knight. I haven't covered Shovel Knight on the channel yet because they are releasing like a deluxe edition that was supposed to come out this year. And I was waiting to do the Shovel Knight games until they did that. But I don't really know.
You should also wait.
I don't know.
You should wait until Mina the Hollower is about to come out.
But now they're releasing Mina in like a month. And so I don't really know.
Oh, it's that soon.
That's a topic for another day. So I don't really know. But
Mina was just delayed.
Shovel Knight. It was just delayed. Yeah. So it was supposed to come out at the end of October on Halloween, but they delayed it. So I don't know for how long. It seems like the statement that they released didn't seem like it was going to be very long, but we'll see. So I don't really know what the next the Shovel Knight Deluxe is going to come out, but I love Shovel Knight. So putting Shovel Knight in something or having him as a character or Shovel Knight cosmetics is a really great way to earn brownie points for me really easily. I am a huge sucker for anything Shovel Knight, and I love it. So I got the Shovel Knight outfit pretty early in the first world, and I haven't taken it off since. It's my favorite thing. So there's a lot of fun cosmetics. I think for people who like that, that's super fun. I really like cosmetics. I think that they're a fun way to kind of like mix up the way that you play the game. And so that's a lot of fun. And then tonics are like equipable things that you can get where you can add fall damage back into the game, or like a lot of the things that they've changed, you can reverse those changes. Or there's even like tonics that, change up the gameplay, make it so that you have more health, more stamina, less stamina, things like that. It's just equipable modifiers to your gameplay. They also have one that lets you listen to the original soundtrack, which we'll get to the soundtrack in just a second here. So I'm taking a lot longer to talk about these things, so I'm going to go through some of them really quick. Some areas have been tweaked and changed altogether, which to make them feel better and be more streamlined and just work a little bit better. There's tons of cosmetics like I was talking about. The quizzes from the original game where Quack, the like side character bad guy, would stop you and ask you quizzes about the game are just gone. They kind of killed the pace. And so that's one of the few things of just content that's just been completely cut, that isn't there anymore, because it didn't seem like anybody liked them in the original Yooka-Laylee, and so they're just gone now. And then the Kartos minigame, which is totally a Kratos joke. He's like a mine cart, but it's like an on-rails cart minigame. It's been hugely tweaked and simplified and made so much more fun. I hated them from the first one. It was like every time I saw them, I was like, I'll get those pages later. But they're super fun now. They've been simplified and they control a lot better. And then probably my favorite addition to the game is Rextro's Arcade. So Rextro is like a retro pixelated like CRT filter T-Rex that you will find throughout the levels. He's a little character and he's got these arcade machines, and you would go to his arcade machine and you could play like a little mini game. And in the original Yooka-Laylee, they were just kind of like throwaway nothing mini games of like, race this minecart around in a circle, or like do this quick little challenge, or jump on. And it's like they didn't control super well. They weren't a lot of fun. They were just kind of like, they were another one of those things where I saw them and I was like, I'll come back to you later. But now what they've done is they've replaced all of those games, like all of those little mini games, with individual levels of like their own unique video game. So when you're playing, you go up to the arcade, you play these little levels as Rextro. They're like little slightly isometric view platforming levels where you play as Rextro, and you push like the attack button and it launches his head forward and like chomps. His like neck grows really long and he chomps. And they use that as a way to like platform and puzzle, and they use it in a lot of really creative ways. And I adore these little like mini levels, these sidetracks. I think they're fantastic. I want Playtonic Games to like spin the Rextro arcade games off into its own series. I would play a whole game of these style of levels. I think they're amazing, and is by far probably my favorite addition to Yooka-Replaylee. I think they're awesome.
Yeah, the retro soundtrack from Yooka-Laylee, the chiptune music, was probably the greatest music in the entire game, or at least it was the most memorable.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you mentioned isometric. Not that it was in retro that it was Yooka-Laylee that I first learned what isometric was, because they have like an ice world where they go into a fixed camera isometric angle, and I was like,
it's an isometric palace because it's made of ice.
It's absolutely brilliant. It was one of the most
puns,
clever places that they had done, but I didn't understand why I had played isometric games before. I didn't know what they were, but it was the first time I was like, what is this brilliance that I can't comprehend geospatially? I get it now.
Yeah,
I like that they experimented within the same game.
Yeah, so they did a lot of that in the original game. Sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. But I do like these Rextro arcade games. They're much better replacements for the little mini games from the original Yooka-Laylee. And then finally is like one of the last things I want to talk about. They have the soundtrack has been completely redone. It is a fully orchestrated soundtrack composed by Grant Kirkhope, David Wise, Steve Burke, and performed by the City of Prague Philharmonic Orchestra.
Ooh,
and so it's so I those guys. So I think that the soundtrack for the original Yooka-Laylee was great, really enjoyable, well-composed soundtrack. But the fact that it's fully orchestrated now is fantastic. And also, if you're feeling nostalgic for the original, there is a tonic you can equip that goes back to the original non-orchestrated soundtrack, which is, if you want to do that. But
Eric,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't remember for sure if Grant Kirkhope and David Wise even did the original soundtrack for Yooka-Laylee.
They did.
They did do it.
Yeah.
But they
so it's all the
made
original
it better.
composers. Yeah. So the Grant Kirkhope, David Wise, and Stephen Burks are the original composers for Yooka-Laylee. And then they came back for Yooka Replay-ly and reorchestrated all of their original songs for that.
So it's basically the same soundtrack, but much punchier. Did they add music?
Not that I'm aware of. There's not really like new specific areas outside of the themes and stuff that they already have. But one thing that is cool about the soundtrack is that it's dynamic. So they have like a theme for like, this is the ice world or whatever. We'll keep using this as an example. And there's like the ice world has kind of like an overarching theme, but the theme tweaks and changes and shifts based on what area of the ice world that you're in.
Yeah, so Banjo-Kazooie did this where it's like you have the same music, but then he had like 5 different orchestrations for any given soundtrack. So it's like, well, here I have the Halloween music, but here I go into a place where it's supposed to be really quiet, so that it changes to, I guess the better example is the overworld music, dun da 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 dun da 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 dun da 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 dun da, and they would take that and it'd be like, well, here I'm in a really creepy place. It's dun da 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 dun da da da, and he draws out that hanging note, and so I just love the contextual orchestration to put you in the given mood of any given spot that you're traveling through. It makes it feel so engaging and immersive.
Yeah. So and for those of you who don't know, Grant Kirkhope, David Wise are hugely prolific video game music composers. They've composed for games like Donkey Kong Country, Donkey Kong 64, Mario Rabbids, Banjo-Kazooie. They have a huge pedigree of really awesome video game soundtracks. And then Steve Burke also is like one of the OG rare composers. He did stuff for Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, Viva Pinata, Conquer Live and Reloaded, and Perfect Dark. So he's got a good pedigree as well. Just really solid music. Good stuff. And so that kind of wraps it up. It's a hugely improved game. Lots and lots of really important tweaks and changes to an original that I already thought was a mostly fun game with some obvious flaws, but Yooka-Replaylee brings it up to a modern standard, tweaks and changes, and adds so many things that it basically feels like a whole new game. So, yeah. Any closing thoughts before we close it out here?
Yeah, can you think of any other IP that was able to do this sort of like somewhere in between a remaster and a remake? Because I think this should be a thing. There are so many IP that live beneath their potential, and I can't think of anything doing it just like this.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. The only thing that I can think of that comes kind of close is, and I'm sure this has happened with other things, but there was an indie game called Death's Gambit, and they released a game that they released Death's Gambit, and it was sort of middlingly received. And then about a year and a half later, they released Death's Gambit Afterlife, which was like an updated version that had some new content and like tons of gameplay tweaks to make it smoother. But it wasn't strictly remastered. Like the visuals were still the same, but they had added new content and tweaked the core gameplay loop and like added some story elements and stuff to kind of like flesh it out and fully realize its potential. So that was sort of a similar situation. But this feels different even from that. Yeah.
It's not exactly the same, but Death Stranding director's cut, where
they kind of
struggles. Yeah, the struggles of traversal and pacing, and they inject a bunch of content to like streamline that.
Yeah, so I think there have been some other games that have done something like this to a lesser degree. But like I said, Yooka Replay-ly basically feels like a whole new game. And they've done so, like, it doesn't feel like a remaster. It feels like them trying again. Like they missed the mark a little bit the first time, and they're like, okay, well, let's just try again.
So why I love this is because, obviously studios are struggling right now. They're closing and budgets are getting too big. But this is a clever way to say, like, I don't even have the budget for a full-on remake, but I have the ability to make my IP that I already have more valuable so that I can maybe continue making money off of another entry in the future and getting the engine up to snuff. So I think this is probably going to become a trend if it's incredibly successful.
I hope so. I think, and again, I've only been playing it for about a day, but I have extremely high opinions of Yooka Replay-ly. Like, just to give it context, I am generally having more fun with Yooka Replay-ly than I did with Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is crazy praise.
Whoa!
Amazing.
I really enjoyed Donkey Kong Bonanza, but I think that I might be in the minority that I feel like I really, really enjoyed it, but it just didn't quite click with me the same way that some other games have. So I think that Donkey Kong Bonanza is a great game.
Mm-hmm.
And it just is like, it just was, for me, it was just kind of like, I really enjoyed my time with it, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I love every second of this kind of a thing.
For me, one of my first opinions that I threw out there was like, I feel like I'm getting dumber playing this game. It feels like a game for modern audiences where it's like just endlessly repetitive tight feedback loop that's meaningless and doesn't add it value. That being said, it's the most fun I've ever had losing brain cells.
It's an extremely fun game. Like I said, I can't really pinpoint exactly what it is about Donkey Kong Bonanza, but towards the end of it, I was just kind of like, I was like the last like couple of worlds in Donkey Kong Bonanza, I was just sort of like, I wanted to just get through the world and like see whatever was next. Like when I first started playing, I was exploring and doing this and really engaging with the game. And then towards the end, I was just kind of like A to B, like just cool. It's a food world, neat. Let's keep going. Like,
yeah. And this is the real struggle that they've had since Odyssey, where it's like you have too many things, and so none of them matter. Whereas like Banjo-Kazooie, you get 10 tasks to a world, or Mario 64, you only get, I don't remember how many stars, is it 10 or 12?
It's 120. 120 total. I don't know however many that divides into.
The point is that like making it smaller allowed you to say every single collectible that you get has a task that was well designed and thought out, whereas Donkey Kong, you're just kind of digging around until you find something, and that just feels meaningless.
Yeah, so there were like a few kind of critical path bananas, but a lot of the bananas just kind of felt like, oh look, there it is. They felt even less like
banana. That's how.
Ooh, banana.
So my daughter started saying, "Oh, banana," and that was actually the best part of playing this game. Was every time she would watch me say, "Oh, banana."
That did tickle a really big like nostalgia thing for me because I played a lot of Donkey Kong 64. Yeah,
she loved the derpy tongue.
And Donkey Kong's animation, or Donkey Kong Bonanza's animation, is kind of top tier. I really love this new character model for Donkey Kong. But yeah, so basically just to put that all in context is that I feel like on a moment-to-moment basis, Yooka Replay-ly is more my jam than Donkey Kong Bonanza. I've just generally been having more fun with it. I think it's an incredibly polished game, and it's kind of surprising that they were able to pull something so compelling out of something that was like, all right in the first place. So I'm really impressed with it. I think it's just good stuff. All right, so Yooka Replay-ly, it gets you between about 15 to 30 hours of playtime, depending on how much level of completion you want to shoot for. It's available for Nintendo Switch 2, PS5, and Xbox Series consoles and PC. It's available for $29.99 digitally, but if you already own the original digitally, you can get a 30% discount. So I got it for like $20, which was cool. Or if you want to wait, it's coming out in the future for $49.99 physically. So almost double physically, which is a bummer.
That's a pretty deep, physical upcharge. Yeah.
So, but if
I want this studio
to
work,
then that's what you want.
I want this IP to survive. So I will do it.
Same. I might even rebuy it when it comes out physically. We'll see.
That's the real scam that they've gotten you in. The FOMO of getting it digitally within the first few months and then buying it again. And then there are just the studios that straight up lie, like Alan Wake 2 and
it's only going to be digital. And then it wasn't.
And then it wasn't. And then I've also been struggling with this with it's only going to be on Xbox. Okay, then I'll buy it. This was Hellblade 2. So I bought it digitally, and it's like, no, never mind. It's coming to PlayStation and physical. I was like, those are the two things I needed. This is infuriating.
Well, and you bought an Xbox basically for Hellblade, right?
Yes, Hellblade and Halo.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And now it's just collecting dust, accreting value though, Like that thing is worth so much more than how much I bought it for now, even though
Just
it has no
not
point
common for games.
to it.
Yeah. Screw you, Microsoft. You're the worst. All right. I think that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for joining this episode of Eric's Indie Corner. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. Mondays are Eric's Indie... Nope. Mondays are Eric's Indie Corner, and our regular series is every Thursday. And we'll catch you all next time. Bye.
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 Outro. Bleepity-doof, bleepity, bloopity blow.